Howdy, I'm Tim from the RSC Ranch, and today we're going to be talking about hay.
Howdy, and welcome to the RSC Ranch, where you will experience our journey of running a family business, caring for animals, and doing life together. Subscribe now and be inspired here at the RSC.
In today's video, we're going to cover 3 different topics. First, it's going to be the 3 different types of hay that you most likely will feed. Second, we want to talk about choosing the right hay for the right animal. And third, we want to talk about how to actually properly feed that hay to the animals. First up, we're going to talk about the 3 different types of hay that we feed on the ranch. Right here, we've got grass hay. This is really good for certain animals. The content in the grass hay is about 7 to 11% protein, 30% fiber, and then 0.4 to 0.5% calcium. So what that does is allows us to feed this hay to certain animals that might have digestive issues, also animals that might be overweight. The higher fiber helps with both of those, and then low protein count is also really helpful for certain animals, and it's not helpful for other animals. All right, so speaking of higher protein, up next we have alfalfa. Alfalfa is actually a legume. It has 12 to 15% protein, 20 to 28% fiber, and 1 to 4% calcium. Now the protein and the calcium are great to help buffer stomach ulcers, but the high levels of calcium can also cause bladder stones, so beware of those. And then up next, we've got our forage hay. Now forage is a combination of oat, wheat, and barley. Sometimes you can also just get oat hay or wheat hay. We pick forage hay, that's our favorite. Now typically, you'll find that these hays have about 7% protein, 32% fiber, and 0.4% calcium. This is a great hay to feed to your mature horses, horses that aren't growing anymore, horses that don't need any special feed. This is a great holding feed. We like to feed it to what we call our easy keepers. All right. One of the downsides to it though is that it can be pretty stocky. All right. So you'll get some of these real fat stalks in here that the horses will not eat. So you'll find that you have a little bit more waste with this hay, but it's still a great hay for your easy keepers. All right. Now that we've talked about the 3 different types of hay that we feed here on the ranch, let's go ahead now and talk about topic number 2, which is feeding the right hay to the right animal. Now there's several things to consider when trying to choose the right hay. We got a lot of different types of animals at our ranch, all right, from goats and sheep to horses and cows, and they all have different types of needs. So first up, let's talk about just weight gain. All right, let's talk about the weight of the horse or the animal you might be feeding. Are they overweight? Do they need to lose a little bit less weight? So just maintaining weight is one thing to consider, and we talked about the different hays, and some are better for weight and some are not as good for that. The alfalfa may not be as good as some of the others. So consider that. Another thing might be digestive issues, right? And just so you know, before we talk more about it, click in the link below in our description. We've got several videos on the digestive system, so check those out for further content detail. But just understanding the digestive system and special needs, horses can tend to colic if you switch their hay overnight and you don't transition the different types of hays and when you feed them. So knowing that, some animals are just more susceptible to colic. So you need to know that about your animal, and it's different for all animals, and these are just things for you to consider. Another one would be just the nutritional need of your animal. If you've got a pregnant animal, all right, they're going to need a lot more protein. You might be feeding them alfalfa instead, or if they're nursing a baby. In the wintertime, we're going to tend to feed a lot more alfalfa because it gets cold out, and so if they have more calories from the alfalfa, they're going to keep on their weight better, right? So you really want to make sure that your horses maintain their weight, or all your animals. So different times of the year, if you have older horses that lose weight easier, or older animals, again, the alfalfa could be really good for that. So just, it helps with the overall condition. If you're at fair and you're getting ready to show an animal, you probably don't want to feed a bunch of hay because they're going to get a hay belly, so you should be feeding alfalfa to your 4-H animals. All right, so those are some things. The last one, which not everybody might have to deal with, but we do out here on the ranch, is your pasture mates. All right, so we actually split up our animals, our horses specifically, into different pastures based on different needs. All right, so all of the horses that are on the forage or the wheat hay, they're all going to be in one pasture. We've got all the mares on alfalfa, so they're in a separate pasture. We have some horses that have to be on grass. We got Chocolate, our mini donkey, right? He's got to be on grass hay. He needs a lot less protein, so a special need there for him. So we have to, sometimes you have to separate your animals according to their food needs, right? So consider that as well. So just remember, you got nutritional needs, you've got dietary needs, right? You've got just, the pasture mates, and then you have just like digestive issues as well. So those are some things that you really need to consider when choosing the right hay for the right animal. And topic number 3, we want to cover how to properly feed hay to your animals. So there's a couple things we want to consider. First and foremost, we want to just know the weight that we're supposed to feed. How much of this are we supposed to give to each animal? So just to get started, you should know that your animal needs to eat about 2% of its body weight per feeding. All right, so we know that, but then we open up a bale of hay and out pops a flake. Well, the question is that flake the right amount? Is it the right weight? All right, and so we need to know more, so we need to feed by weight, not by flake. Bales come anywhere from 80 to 150 pounds, and the flakes can be all different weights. So number 1, make sure you feed the right weight to your animal. All right, number 2, you want to make sure that you actually spread the hay out. All right, so you want to have multiple piles, right, for each animal. The animals are not going to share their food. All right, so have multiple piles, and sometimes I even like to throw an extra pile, right, just to make sure that there's even one extra for all the animals. When you go out to feed, you don't want to just throw the hay down. All right, you want to make sure that when you go to feed, you look around, you assess the situation, you make sure that your animal ate the food from the prior feeding. All right, you never know when your animal might not be feeling well. If the animal won't eat their food, a couple of things could be going on. The first thing we like to do is check to make sure they have water. The first thing that they'll do when they don't have water is they won't eat. So check your water. Second thing, if they're not eating and they have water, is we just check to make sure that they've been pooping, because if not, they could be colicking. And then from there, probably need to take their temperature and move on, and maybe even call a vet. But make sure that their animals are actually eating. All right, so you want to be aware of that as you're driving around and feeding. And then now you want to talk about feeding on the ground versus feeding out of a feeder. All right, there's a lot of advantages to feeding out of a feeder, but you do want to make sure, remember that the way the animals sort of in nature, they're eating off the ground, right? So the way their necks and their digestive system they're meant to be eating off the ground. So if you're going to give them a feeder, don't give them a feeder way up where they have to eat up high. You want to make sure it's at level with them. We definitely feed out of feeders in the wintertime. We don't want to lose a lot of hay to the rain and the mud and the horses or the animals trampling all over it. So feeding on the ground when it's dry is fine, but definitely when it's wet out, you want to feed out of the feeder to make sure that you're maximizing your feed production. So wrapping up topic number 3, again, we want to make sure that we're feeding 2% of the weight of our animal. Because so we want to make sure that we're feeding by weight, not by the flake that comes out of the bale. We also want to make sure we spread out our piles so every animal has their own feed pile. And then if you're feeding out of a feeder, we want to make sure it's a proper feeder, it's at the proper height and all that for your animal. Look, when I got here a number of years ago, I didn't know any of this stuff. I hadn't fed like I do now. I realized it's not as simple as I thought. A lot of different animals, a lot of different needs, a lot of different time of the year, different types of feed. So this has been really helpful for me. This is all stuff I've learned. I wanted to share it with you all, or share it with your friends. If you're getting into 4-H and you want to learn a lot of this stuff, we have a lot of these types of educational videos on our YouTube channel. So please share them with others. I hope this benefited you as it has myself. Anyhow, hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.
If you enjoyed this video, we would love to hear from you. Like and subscribe, and leave us a comment on what you'd like to see in future episodes. We'll see you back at the ranch.